Welcome back to The Knot, everybody. My name's Scott Freymuller. I'm here with Shelly Netco, and we're going to talk about self-care and how many hugs you need a day to be healthy. Because apparently, now you said this morning when you came into the studio that how many hugs is it to be normal? 4?
No, not normal. It's 4 for survival.
Oh, 4 for survival.
8 for maintenance.
Right.
12 for growth.
Yeah, none of us got any hugs.
Well,
this is the second. This is the second segment.
My stuff was heavy, and I have my back injury.
Oh, so you were too busy to give us.
I had to put my stuff down first.
Oh.
My arms were full.
So you were too busy for self-care then.
And then I hugged, yes.
Right.
And then I was a hugger.
All right. So I got the green light to go on this one, and I want to say, self-care. It always goes back. Every single thing goes back to the same deal, and it's all about self-care. It's all about taking care of yourself. It's all about making sure that you're healthy mentally and physically, and all those things first, because you can't help anybody else unless you're in a spot where you can. Mm-hmm. And you attract what you are. Your mental health and your well-being affects all your decisions in life. It affects your relationships and your job and your kids and everything. Mm-hmm. And we just witnessed Eric with his story about addiction, and we talk about. It's funny how we say the word addiction, and there's so many addictions. There's alcohol, there's people, there's social media, there's watching movies, there's work, there's oh my gosh,
shopping.
It is so amazing how we do so many things to hide from life, and I say we because me too, and being present is so difficult, right? So over the past couple days, I wrote down. So I actually took some notes for this one.
Oh.
And yeah, I know, crazy, right?
Do share.
And I mean, there's a lot of data here.
Okay.
And one of the things that we say all the time is the power of why. And I actually read that. That was a mistake that I came up with that. But when I was reading about it, the power of why is huge, and the 3 whys. Like when something happens in your life or you behave a certain way, that's really essentially the question. Like, why did I do that? Mm-hmm. And then answering that question 3 times brings you to the truth. It brings you to the root of the cause, or potentially the root of the problem, or the root of the, something good that comes out of that, right? And there's always something good will come out of that if you reflect on whatever happened, good or bad. Like, hey, I can repeat this, or I don't want to do this again, or
what can I do differently?
Here's why. Mm-hmm. And that's a really powerful way to, stay in that mental health well-being state. Mm-hmm. Case in point, something happens, an event in a relationship or something like that, and either side can be like, why did that happen? And if you ask yourself why 3 times and you're not in that anywhere, then that one of the problems is you, mm-hmm. right? Mm-hmm. So there's a powerful way to use that way also. So I'm reading this book, and I read this thing. It's a concept about calibration. Mm. And you already know what that is, right? This is all new to me. I thought this was fascinating. And the deal was to wake up in the morning and calibrate your day. Mm-hmm. And it said, I'm going to have a great day. I'm excited for the day. I'm excited to see what happens today. I love myself. I can't wait to see my son. I can't wait to go to work. Like, today's going to be just a fantastic day, and I'm really excited about it. I'm going to get to work out and blah, 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 blah. Mm-hmm. Not blah, blah, but blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, no, I get
right?
it. Yada, yada, yada.
Yeah, yada, yada, yada. And then, I did that a couple days, actually, and then it says to write it down because it makes it more powerful if you write it down. Sure. And I did, and I wrote it down. And I was like, wow, that's really, really super cool. Mm-hmm. So then I get into the psychology of it because I ask why. Like, why does that work? Mm-hmm. So I find this rule, and it's called the 17-second rule. Mm-hmm. And it outlines a way where you could take your phone, your social media device, or time it, for example, 17 seconds, and you say positive things for 17 seconds, and it actually rewires your brain. Mm-hmm. And it also makes you present.
Or you keep one thought for 17 seconds. Mm-hmm. And at the end of the 17 seconds, then you take a like thought and you hook it onto the end of it.
But it comes automatically then.
And you do it again. It doesn't have to, though. If you're stuck in a negative loop ahead of time and you have to reframe and get to a positive place, you can easily slip back to the negative place.
It is so amazingly powerful. Like the 17-second rule. And when we were talking earlier today with Eric, and he was saying, I have a rock and I have to get present. And I was like, man, the 17-second rule would be huge. Mm-hmm. And it's so cool because I've actually done it a couple times, right?
Yeah.
But the calibration is somewhat of that, because when you're calibrating your day and you're thinking about like what your intent is for your day, not only are you writing down like what your intent is, it's not a list of things to do, but it's a list of ways to feel. It takes about 17 seconds or longer. And you set your brain, you're like rewiring your brain, and you're rewiring your thought process. It is amazing. And I'm thinking, wow, how come nobody teaches this in school? You know, the 17-second rule, calibration, and it sounds so elementary, and it is elementary, right? So
I think it'll be taught in school in the future.
it should be.
I think we're headed there.
You know, and it's really, really amazing, and that's one of the things. It's almost like on the website, I keep thinking of all these different things we can do, but to put that on the website, you know, like a 17-second rule or calibration or here's what it is, or, you know.
Tapping, there's all kinds of things.
Yeah, there's all kinds of stuff. Like you said, you know, you talk to yourself in your makeup mirror in your car or whatever, your visor mirror. And I thought, I was like, I laughed, you know, I was like, oh, wow, that's really cool. Like I thought, wow, that's really neat. But I couldn't see myself doing that. So the other day, I was driving to the gym. I was in the morning, and I was like thinking about the calibration thing, and I was just talking out loud, and I'm like, da da da. I'm like, I'm gonna have a great day, and I'm going to the gym, and I get to drive my car. Like, how grateful I am. You know, this is so cool. Like, oh my gosh, like, I can't believe my life, and I can't believe like, but that's the thing. Like, I can't believe. And then when you say it out loud, you reframe it. You're like, oh no, this is amazing.
You're
like,
I can.
I'm so grateful, and I can believe that I get to go to the gym in the morning, and I can believe that, you know, I have great people around me, and I can believe. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And when you say it out loud,
It's just
it makes
those affirmations.
Yeah. But it's not in a weird way. It's
No.
not in like a,
No.
I'm having a hard day.
Affirmations aren't
and-
weird. Yeah.
Yeah, rue
Yeah.
is me. It's just reminding yourself that you do have the capability to set your calibration and to set the intent for your day,
Right.
and to change
Yeah.
your mood or your state of mind.
When I'm working with clients who are in a place that is not good, and I'm helping them understand 17-second rule, I have to try to, I deliver to them some ideas of how to get out of negative 17 seconds to transition to positive 17 seconds, because sometimes they can't even see the idea of it. So we use things like physical change. Like, you have to maybe get up and get out of the chair, Scott. Go over to the door, walk outside, stand in the sun, turn some music on. Sometimes I tell them, if you're so desperate for a change, open the freezer and breathe some freezing cold air. Like, do anything to shock your system or to shift you so you can say, okay, it's a new 17 seconds. But you have to do something physically different and completely different from where you are, where you're sitting, what you're doing. You can't just sit there and go, okay, it's a new 17, because that's not how easy it is.
Right.
Especially if you're in a really bad place.
Right. And you change your environment.
Because what's going to happen is you're going to take that negative thought and you're going to go 17 more seconds with it. But the idea is grab a new 17 seconds, but you have to do something to get the new 17 seconds.
Right. And you're actually, so you remember the mood or the emotion. An emotion lasts 90 seconds, right? So you're actually retraining your brain to let go of that emotion early and be like, hey, I'm not going to be angry. I'm going to think about something else. And I'm going to make myself do that for 17 seconds. It's also a form of meditation too.
Sure.
To where you reset yourself, right? And so the next thing that's interesting that we're saying this and we're talking about this process is that when you said get up and move, if you're in a bad place, you're hurting or you're like really bummed out, you can use the 5 rule. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and on 1, I'm getting up and I'm going to move and I'm going to go outside. And I'm going to take my shoes off and
Like a rocket.
and
The countdown.
Right. And it works so good for procrastination too. Like, hey, I'm going to do this in 5 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, boom, I'm going to do this.
Right.
And that's very, very powerful. It's very, very interesting how that works too. But, you know, the calibration, the 17-second rule, and then this 5-second deal. And I think there's actually a few things on, you know, the internet. These are all studies. This is scientific stuff. This isn't people being like, hey, try a 7. Like, this is all proven things to do for mental health.
Well, it's retraining your mind, undoing the old habit, replacing it with a new habit, because you can't take that old one and just chuck it aside and have this empty space.
Right. And you're rewiring.
You have to replace it.
Yeah, and it's like a retraining and a rethinking and it's changed your perspective. It changes so many things, and it doesn't last forever. It's not like it lasts the whole day. You got to keep at it. You know, if you're having a rough day or something happens and it's stressful or whatever, then you can reframe it with those methods, and I'm sure there's hundreds more that we'll learn about
Sure.
that you already know probably, but that self-care piece is really that. It's like taking care of yourself, and it's not always, working out and, dressing nice and taking a shower, but a lot of this is mental,
Right.
and when we talk about being grateful or being present, there's so many other things that come with that I've found and I've realized, and I'm learning every day, is that, man, if you can just do one of those things, the other things start falling into place. Like if you're grateful, it's pretty hard to have a bad day if you're grateful. The other thing that I read about was your subconscious, and I'm really interested in how the subconscious works, and from a perspective of trauma and things that have happened in your past that affect you now that you don't even think about. Myself specifically, but that's fascinating to me, like how my brain works now.
Controls the majority of our thoughts.
Yeah, it's fascinating to me, like how my brain works and why I would think the way I thought and why I would do the things I would do, but not actually, you know what I'm saying? Like being angry or, again, like Eric was saying, he had such horrible things happen in his childhood he never dealt with, that if something happened, he would react extreme. And I did the same thing. But until you understand why, you're like, oh my gosh, I didn't even realize that's why.
Sure.
But you have to figure out the why. And then you have to be truthful.
Right.
Those two things are key. So the next thing I read about was writing things down 10 times to change your subconscious. So for example, the end of a relationship. My relationship is over, my relationship is over, my relationship is over, my relationship is over, my relationship is over. And then you write that down 10 times. You can even write down like, my relationship is over and I'm moving on, I'm going to be happy. My relationship is if it's over, I'm moving on, I'm going to be happy. You can write those things down and it helps you realize like your reality. It also helps you be present. But the key there is realizing your reality, like taking over that subconscious in your mind. Whatever you may be wanting to think or whatever fantasy you have in your head, like you write down the facts of right now in reality. And the way I found that is it was talking about a relationship. We talk about how you could be in a toxic relationship and make up something about somebody that's a fantasy. You have this like paper mache person that you think you're with, and that's really not who they are.
It's a fantasy of who they are.
It's a fantasy of
or
who
who
they
they
are.
were, and
Yeah.
you're still in love with the were versus the is.
And that was one of the ways to help realize your reality. And it was I forget which psychiatrist had that, but they have a lot of stuff. Gosh, I can't remember. But when I was reading about that, the purpose of that was to help you realize your reality, like counseling does, right? It's not to make a change or, this is a horrible relationship. It's to be,
See
hey,
things
this
for what
is
they are.
actually what happened. So, and you write it down 10 times and then you can't make up a story. You can, but it's harder,
Right.
And it makes you present. And that was really powerful too.
Well,
That was
and then
super powerful.
what that does is it puts it in your subconscious. So then, say you see a picture on social media of the person and you like start to fantasize about, oh, I wish this, I wish that.
Yeah.
Then your subconscious is telling you those words.
Right.
My relationship is over and I move on.
Yeah.
Like that, those words come
Right,
up.
and that person
from
isn't
your subconscious.
who you think they are. Yeah, and it's really, really, really powerful. The other thing that it helps with, I find that one of the most unhealthy things you can do is compare. It's so prevalent in that, we
Yes.
talked about social media, we talked about even, Eric being in rehab or, oh, this person got a DUI or this person did this or this person did that. Comparing is judging.
Or even comparing, like, if you're in a relationship and you talk about, oh, we used to do this, like comparing where you are today to where you were last year.
Yeah.
That's not helpful.
It's not.
It's
Isn't
not
it crazy?
helpful.
Like it's so amazing to me how not everybody, but people have a tendency, we all have a tendency to pull ourselves back to show a negative. And when you're doing that or when you're comparing, what are you really saying? Like, remember when we used to do this?
Yeah.
You're saying that
you're
right
saying
now
we
sucks?
suck.
Or are you saying that you want to do that again? Or
Right.
we had a good time and we'd like
It's
to do it
usually
over?
a negative connotation versus
Right.
like, oh my God, look how cute this is. We should do this again.
Yeah.
That's a different way.
Yeah, like,
That's
hey, remember
completely
that? That was
different
super
conversation.
fun. Would you like
Yeah.
to do that again with me?
Yeah.
Again, people are saying what they want and who they are if you listen. And comparing is one of those things, when you're judging, you're comparing. And when you're even, you feel guilty or you feel shame, it's a form of comparing really at the end of the day. I mean, why would you feel guilty? You feel guilty of what? Because you think somebody else did it better, or
Right.
did Eric think that,
Or you're not doing your best.
yeah, or be like somebody, right? Like, the other thing too is one of the biggest insults to people, and one of the most unhealthy comments, especially in a toxic relationship, is saying, "Oh, did you see what he did? Like, I wish you were more like him or her." And I see that sometimes, and I hear it, and I'm like, wow.
Inferred jealousy.
Like, how, like, just stab them in the heart, you
Yeah.
know? And it's so toxic. And, you know, the self-care piece of this is not only doing things to keep your head on straight, but it really does come down to your mind is incredibly powerful. And if your mind's not on straight, you can't set boundaries. And if you're not sober, you know, and present, then
Right.
then you don't even know, and truthful,
Right.
like, what the fuck is really going on? You
and
know?
the basis is if you're not caring for yourself. And that's
Mm-hmm.
the problem, is if you're in a situation like that, you may not be taking care of yourself, and you may be abandoning parts of yourself, like we talked about earlier, for the goal of thinking the relationship is going to be what's going to bring you that happiness,
Mm-hmm.
where you can only get the happiness from your self-care, from your self-love. So the question that people miss, I think, sometimes, is when they're in that relationship, say a toxic relationship or just an unhealthy relationship, is they continue to sell themselves out, abandon
Right.
themselves, leave themselves aside, and then wonder why it still isn't bringing them happiness. And they're afraid to face that answer,
Right.
and they're afraid to face that reality, and that's that abandoning the truth as well. So I think if people can get to a place of saying, okay, I've tried this, and I'm still not happy, and it's still not working, and I'm still abandoning myself, you know, there has to be a place where people can cross that step and cross that bridge
Yeah.
and say, it's okay for me to realize that I need myself more,
Absolutely.
because that's where the self-care comes in.
And another interesting thing is self-care starts from the top down. Self-care starts with your mind. It starts with your thought process. It has to start from the top down. And what a lot of people forget, myself included, is that when you get out of a relationship or an event happens or whatever, you instantly want to go to, like, okay, I'm going to work out. I'm gonna go have some drinks with my friends, or, you know, whatever. But you're not actually fixing the issue. You're avoiding it, you know. And there's so many different ways to avoid it. Like Eric so eloquently pointed out with addiction. Like, you can make working out an addiction too, to avoid actually dealing with what's going on, right? You can get endorphin from working out, or from being a sex addict, or from not drinking alcohol, endorphins, but a depressant to disconnect you, you know, or a stimulant.
You get dopamine for a short hit. and-
Yeah. Or whatever. And that it's so fascinating to me that, you know, you have to start from the top down, and that's not really the message. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just so funny to me how we sometimes go the opposite way. Well, wait,
Well,
if I
because
look better.
we think that's going to bring us happiness. So
Yeah.
whatever we're doing, whatever our activity is, or whatever we seek out,
Right.
we think that's going to bring us the happiness instead
Yeah.
of starting inside.
And you think, here's another amazing concept too, that when you're hurting or there's something wrong, the hardest work to do is in your head. That's the hardest stuff, right? Because you got to be truthful, you got to be real. It's hard. That's the
Present.
hardest stuff to do.
You have to face your biggest fear.
And the easy Band-Aid stuff is, I'm going to go buy a new car, which I've done. I'm going to go do this, go on a trip, which I've done. Or I'm going to go work out and lose a whole bunch of weight and get super fit, which I've done. And you know that you're unhealthy when that isn't your normal lifestyle. You know there's something wrong. Like, I've always worked out.
Or
right?
you've done it, and then you step back and you're like, I'm still not happy.
I've always been super fit. I've always had, you know, I've always been into cars, whatever. But you really need to ask yourself why all the time. You know, I go work out a lot more than I normally do, and honestly, 90% of the reason is because there's not a lot of other shit for me to do. I like it, but I don't need to go all the time. Sometimes I go twice a day, right? Because I'm like, God, what am I gonna do tonight? Then I'm gonna go work out. You know what I'm saying? Instead of sitting and watching TV. Is that healthier than watching TV? Yeah. But the reason why I'm doing it is sometimes to avoid actually, you know, processing things. Like today in the studio is a tough day. Like, that actually affected me. I said it didn't, but it did. That's
know.
full of shit.
I know.
You could see it in my face.
I
That
see.
was like gnarly. And I absorb some of that stuff sometimes. And then initially I'm like, no, it didn't bug me. But then I'm thinking, you know what? I'm gonna go do 2 workouts after this. Like, that's how I'm going to deal with it, right? And then I'll think about it after, because then I'll be chill. It's so amazing how...
Instead of feeling it.
Oh, yeah. It's so amazing, like, how our minds automatically we go back to that habit of either walking away or masking it or whatever. And I say we, but me, and hiding that truth and trying to preserve, you know what I'm saying? Like where you're really at. And it's hard to be self-aware. It's hard to be present like that, So the other thing that we were going to talk about too is reparenting your inner child. I read a lot about that. There's like a whole section of this book about that, about reparenting your inner child, and it was about how when you're a little kid, we talked a little bit about it today, like grabbing that kid and being like, hey man, but it's you, and talking to you, and that's huge self-care. Again, you're starting from the top and working your way down, but nothing changes, nothing gets better unless you do that,
And you have to be willing to be vulnerable, because that's not an easy thing.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's not easy.
And last night, I got to the restaurant early, and I was sitting there, and you know me, I talk to everybody. And lo and behold, somebody starts talking to me, and she was sad. And she was waiting for her friend, her boyfriend or whatever, and she was like sad. And I was like, why are you so bummed out? She goes, oh, I just saw this video on YouTube or whatever, and it was about this little girl who was molested or whatever, and she goes, it really hit home for me. And I was like, oh, really? Why? Fuck. And she starts in with this story, and she's like, man, when I was a little kid, we had this family friend, and we all used to hang out and have all these like picnics on the street and do all this stuff, and one of the neighbors took me to his house, and he's like, hey, do you want to see my snake? And she's like, yeah, I want to pet your snake, like I want to see it, like where's it at? Da, da, da. He's like, oh, it's down in the basement. And then he's like, oh, you can only see my snake in the dark, you want to pet it? And it wasn't a snake. And this was when she was like, she said doesn't even remember how old she was, but she was like 7 or 8. And she said when she saw that video, it triggered that. And she was like upset. And I was like, oh my God. I go,
had she not remembered it before?
I don't think so. I don't know. Lo and behold, there I am sitting there, And I was like, wow, man, I'm so sorry about that. That's crazy. Did you ever tell anybody about it? She's like, oh my God, no. I'm like, really? She's like, yeah, you're the first person I told. I'm like, oh. What a coincidence, do you want to come on the show? You know what I mean? But it wasn't a joke. It wasn't like that. It was like, and I actually thought in my head, I'm like, you should talk to that little girl. You should tell her, like, that's not her fault. And like, that was, it's something that shouldn't happen, that you love her and take her and walk her out of that basement and like keep her with you. Yeah. And it was so fascinating to me that just a little while before that, I was talking to Heidi about how I took myself out away from that TV. And that's just so fascinating and so amazing, but the self-care goes so deep. It's not about a 17-second rule or a 5-second rule of calibration. It's about actually like being aware and fixing your shit. Yeah. And that's a hard thing to do, man. Starting at the top is hard. It's hard.
And when it comes to the inner child too, I think the important thing is to recognize what it was your inner child missed or was lacking or was searching for. Because what we were searching for as a child, or what we had to abandon and shut off, is what we go through life searching for in those relationships that we replicate. And until we can recognize what that is, whether it was validation or love or affection, whatever specifically, then that's when we can really open our eyes and see where the work is. Because some people have no idea.
Yeah, they don't. And the other realization is that, I went from a marriage to another relationship immediately after, and so did the other person. And now that it's like done and I'm totally alone, I'm sort of dealing with both. Like I have memories of, I'm like, okay, what's this emotion from? Or wow, today I remembered this and this kind of bugged me, but it has nothing to do with them. It all has to do with me. Right. It all has to do with like what I missed. It has nothing to do with the person. And it's so powerful to understand that and to realize that, but also know too that, sorry, I didn't mean to point at you. You also know too that when you're doing this and you're doing this process and you're by yourself and you don't jump from relationship to relationship, or you're not dating 5 different people, you have to be accountable for your state of mind. Sure. You can't band-aid it with BS. You can't be like, this date sucked, or wow, what a piece of shit relationship that was. I'm going to go on to this other person. Right. And the amazing thing, the really, really powerful thing is that you repeat the same shit over and over and over. And that is a sad state of affairs too. and the power of waking up and the power of just seeing reality and seeing your reality and being truthful with who you really are. Back to, you told me I could talk, by the way. Back to Eric, when he was saying one of the most powerful things in his recovery was his truth. When he said the truth.
Yeah.
You know, that's a big deal. But then you put that truth on your arm to remind you every day. You know what I'm saying? That's a gnarly deal. Like, that's just so...
That's crazy.
I know. You know, like, it's just so amazing the things that people, you know, do. But you know, it's funny. I was starting to think when we were doing the self-care thing. I'm like, oh, we're going to talk about like working out and doing it, but it's really not.
No.
That's all BS.
Yeah.
It's really about working from the top down.
Well, and I think the last piece about it is that some people confuse that just the self-care with being selfish, and it's not.
Not at all.
It's fundamental.
It's totally fundamental. It's totally core stuff. It's totally talking. It's absolutely, you know, I know for a fact that the healthier your mind is, all those other things fall into place, the boundaries and the, you know, people that are in your life and how you react to situations. If you have a healthy piece in here, then everything else works. And the other thing too is it's not so important how you look or what you have. Or, you know what I'm saying? If you can have that happiness from within and that joy from within, then those things don't matter as much. And I noticed that also in my life is that the things in life don't matter that much, and who I'm with doesn't matter that much. And you know what I'm saying? It just doesn't. Like, I actually used to worry that, you know, I'd be out by myself and somebody would see me by myself and they'd be like, how come he doesn't have any friends? I used to think like that. Isn't that nuts?
That's funny.
But the self-care, when you come to a place of being solid and loving yourself, like, you know, it doesn't matter anymore.
Right.
Social media goes away, all those different things. But it takes a crap ton of work, and starting at the top sucks. But you got to do it. Otherwise, you'll never experience like true joy or true happiness.
Keep abandoning yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you said I could talk a lot, so now you go. What do you got?
Oh no, we processed. We're good.
You're done, huh? And I don't know if there's anything else I can really say about it now, but that is a big deal. You know, we talked earlier too about, you know, the yoga and the grounding and all those different things, and that's really super cool. So, anyways,
Lots of
good
tricks.
self-care. We cool.
Good stuff.
Well, that's, you know what, this will work great. Then from now on out, I'll just talk and you can just be like, yep. All right, you guys. Thanks a lot, Shelley Netco and Scott Freymuller with self-care. Actually, it was just me talking. But anyways, we appreciate the support.
You had an agenda.
Yeah, I did. Thanks for, I had notes, that's why.
That's right.
Thanks for watching. We appreciate it. Have a great day.